Hey, what's up? Why you should? Today we're not going to talk about music as usual. I promised it like a month ago, and it just doesn't happen because other things keep popping up. But yeah, we'll eventually get there. I promise we'll eventually get there. I just don't know when. So I didn't really want to talk about Dark Souls, but I am forced to talk about it. And it's not going to be... This is a why you should play Dark Souls, or any of the Souls games, really. But I want to explain myself a little bit better. What I'm talking about is not how the game itself is awesome, it's something very specific of the game. And it is the multiplayer interaction there. It is a very, very unique form of interaction that hasn't been done many times before, and or a similar manner at least. And whenever it's done, I'm pretty sure always it is celebrated as something very, very, very wonderful. The obvious example would be Journey, and we'll get to that. So what the hell am I talking about? In Dark Souls, in case you don't know, and I know this is kind of, for anyone who does play Dark Souls or knows Dark Souls, is not as relevant, but let's just make sure we're on the same page here. In Dark Souls, I'm not talking about actual multiplayer when you're next to another person, not talking about that. When you're playing the single player experience, you're not really alone. It is a single player experience, completely, in a lot of cases, but you're playing alongside a ton of other people, and you feel them there. It feels like you're playing alongside a lot of other people, even though you're completely alone. And that is a remarkable feeling. The multiplayer experience here is very, very constricted. You're very limited in what you can actually do. But even with that, even if you don't do anything, you just play the game, your game is affecting others. And that is incredible. Let's talk about the basics. When you walk around, you'll see bloodstains on the floor, and I know that sounds a little macabre, but it's not. It's really not. You see bloodstains, and if you walk up to them, you can press a button and actually see the couple of last seconds of another person's life. Another person that is relatively your level and clearly in the same place. This is not always helpful. Sometimes you'll just see someone getting hit by some shadow. Clearly, you don't see what he's getting hit by, you only see the character. But he's fighting, and he's losing, and he died. So that's not as helpful. But a lot of the times, you see him walking forward, rounding a corner, and then getting hit by something. And that clearly states there's something around that corner. Dark Souls is a game about death. It's a game where you die all the time. It's a lot of trial and error, especially the first time you play through, because you're unfamiliar and you pretty much walk into a room with your shield up, terrified. You have no idea what's going to happen. And that little bit of information that another person's death gives you is immense. It's so useful and interesting and feels like you are playing with another person. A good example would be when there's a difficult jump or a difficult drop that you have to do. You have to carefully walk to this, from here, this direction, and drop exactly where you should drop and pick up an item or something like that. That's really problematic in a lot of cases because it gets difficult. But you get a lot of bloodstains on the floor. And you click a button, and you see someone else not succeeding the jump or not succeeding the drop. And then you know how not to do it. And that's very, very valuable information. You're playing alone, but alongside a lot of other people. Another amazing system is the message system. You could actually put a message on the ground, and other people could read it. You're very, very limited in what you can actually write. It's a very constructed set of messages that you can choose from, like, try something, or beware of something, and then you can choose that something, whether it's a monster, like a skeleton, or whatever, or a trap, or orientation, so you could beware of right, to beware, there's something on the right. And you could put these messages on the ground, and when somebody comes up and reads them, they can either close it, or they can rate it in the most basic way in the world. They can +1 it. And when you read a message, you can see the rating. If it's a rating of 0, you know it's not that useful or it's just something stupid. But if it has a rating of 40, you know that 40 people found this useful. And that must mean that you should pay attention and try and decipher what that person meant. Because remember, you can't just write whenever you want. You have a constructed set of structures and of sentences and words that you're allowed to use. That's really, really cool, but it goes beyond that. When you get rated, when one of your messages gets rated, you actually get a little, your message has been rated on the screen, and you also get a little bit of boost of HP. You also get healed a little bit, and that might come when you most need it in the middle of a boss fight, or, well, just in the middle of nothing. You're full HP and just resting in a bonfire, leveling up or whatever. But it's still, it gives you a little bit of good job, and that makes you want to leave messages around. And that system is absolutely wonderful. Notice how this is completely single player. I have not talked about having 2 players in the same location. That exists for PvP and PvE. Okay, player versus player and player versus the game environment. But single player completely, those systems are there. And that, to me, that system that is very, very constricted in one sense, and you don't expect that. In most games, you even have, in a lot of games today, you even have voice chat over just writing stuff. You even have voice chat, and that leads to a lot of problems in a lot of cases. As an example, take any team-based game, the amount of flaming and yelling at each other that happens there is immense. But in these games, the opposite happens. When you have very little communication, it's actually quite beautiful, where you invite someone to a duel, or you come up to fight someone, and you see them, they see you, and then you bow. The probably strongest form of communication you can have in this game is gestures. There's just a couple of things that your character can do, such as a bow, or a wave, or a mock, or whatever, and you could just use them, and then your character will do that action. When you come up to duel someone, most people, again, not everybody, but like 90% of people actually bow before the duel, and then you start the duel. And that to me is magical. That to me is incredible. It's so cool. I can't pronounce how amazing I feel that is. So that very constricted form of communication flourishes into something beautiful. And if you want more examples of that, you can only take Journey, which is one of the most celebrated games. Dark Souls is also one of the most celebrated games of the last couple of years, but Journey has won every award imaginable in terms of games, and it is really, really, really great. And the only form of communication, it's a very much game where you play with other people, but you have no idea who that person is. And the only form of communication is chiming. It's like doing a little sound to divert their attention to you. That's pretty much your only communication. And that game is incredible. So there's something magical about that, and I really think that everyone that is remotely interested in games, or just in communication even, should play one of these games, if not for what the game offers. And Journey could be played by anyone. I'd say Dark Souls is pretty much a hardcore game. It is rather difficult. You need to get the hang of it. It's not for everyone. But just for the sake of that communication, and for understanding that very unique style of very limited communication that flourishes into something beautiful, I think everyone should at least try it, at least the start of it, and see that in action, because it's remarkable. So yeah, that's it. You should play Dark Souls. It's awesome. It's really, really awesome. And that's it. I did it. I'm sorry. I'm not going to talk about Dark Souls anymore. I promise. You should play it. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Maybe next week, music, unless something else comes up. I'm going with the flow, with whatever comes up in my life that I enjoy talking about. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.